Good morning and welcome to Coffee with Rich. Once again, I am Rich Brown, the co-host and co-founder of the American Warrior Society, the American Warrior Show, America's #1 self-defense podcast. And today I'm joined yet again by Mr. Andrew Keith of the GunJitsu Podcast. Good morning, Andrew.
What's going on, Rich Brown?
Not much, brother. Let's give me 1 second to get set up, then we'll get you reintroduced to the audience.
I feel bad because, every time you have TC on, lots of leather-bound books, and he's in his study, that I'm sure smells mahogany.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, I'm in our little office here. We're getting our bathrooms redone, so there's all kinds of mess behind me.
There is a mess behind you. That is true.
That is very true. Renovations are fun.
Yes. Okay, let's see. We got 12 folks on so far. Please like and share. We have a returning guest today, Andrew Keith, who is a SWAT officer, patrol sergeant with a department that we will not name, as well as the co-host of the GunJitsu Podcast, and he is from Armed Threat Solutions, which is his private company, and we'll tell you more about that. And I have links to all those things below. You can find out more about the GunJitsu Podcast, as well as today's sponsor, which is Appalachian Standard. Appalachian Standard are artisan hemp growers growing the finest CBD products in beautiful Asheville, North Carolina. And below, I have a link to their products that I personally use below with a 15% off discount for all the folks that watch Coffee with Rich. If you want to find out more about the American Warrior Society or the American Warrior Show, or get some cool American Warrior Society swag, check out the links in the show notes today, and you can find out more about that. American Warrior Society has all the training videos and training tracks for your self-defense needs, whether it's from unarmed gun grappling type of things, if you're into that, as well as edge weapons, less lethal tools like pepper spray, tasers, etc., all the way up to firearms and fitness. So please check that out. You can take a 14-day free trial. Every Thursday night, we get on and we do Zoom coaching sessions with our members who want it. So there's a lot to offer there at AmericanWarriorSociety.com. Please check it out. And today, like I said, we have returning guest, Andrew Keith. Once again, good morning and welcome back to the show, Andrew.
Good morning, Rich Brown.
Hey, man. So thanks to the 23 folks that's live already on this beautiful Friday morning. Sorry we're running late. I'm going to blame Andrew since it is, in fact, his fault. And let's see here who we got on the show this morning. Let's see. We have Gene is on. Brett is on. TC, he says he's usually on time, which is true. Jeff Day is on. Good morning, Jeff. Jared is on. Will Parker. Will, I hate that I'm going to miss you here in Montana in a week or so, but you'll be out there getting some good training. Stephen Washington, coin number 2003 from Michigan, watching while my high school students take a test on goal setting. Good morning, Stephen. Let's see who else is on here. Rick is on. Semper Fidelis Rick. Gregory is on. Another Marine Corps brother. TC is on. Jeff is on. My brother, my birth brother is on. Mike Seeklander just starting. Yeah, we're running late, Mike. Sorry, we're all messed up over here. Rick is on. Jeff is on. Mike Seeklander says, "Nice, Andrew. Great job screwing up the show." How do you respond to that?
Who said that?
Mike Seeklander.
Don't worry about Mike Seeklander. Never heard of
her. I want to see you guys roll, man.
I don't know. I'm always down for a good roll.
Two really skilled purple belts. I dig seeing that. Okay, without further fanfare, it looks like JD Helly has joined us. Matt has joined us. Matt, thank you for those products you sent. Appreciate that. He's joined us from Iowa, coin number 1985. So you never heard of Mike Seeklander, huh?
No, never heard of him. See, I think I heard maybe one time he likes to shoot guns or something. Maybe I don't know.
That's the rumor. Hey, thank you to the 40 folks that are joining us. Please like and share. Hit that share button before we get into today's show. Boy, do we have a doozy. Returning guest, Andrew Keith. He is out there guarding the thin blue line that protects you from total anarchy, and we're lucky to have him on the show. So please share this with someone that needs it. Okay, Andrew, please re-educate our audience, if you would, a little bit about yourself, man.
Let's see. I've been a police officer for 13 and a half years. Means I have 11 and a half more to go till retirement. In that time, I have handled a K9, done the patrol gig my entire career. I've never been in any other division but patrol. Let's see, I'm currently on our tactical team at the moment, which is a part-time team. I'm a patrol supervisor, purple belt in jiu-jitsu, shoot USPSA and IDPA. And that's about it. Yeah. Turning 40 this year. That's always fun.
Yeah, you're getting old, pal.
Getting the mileage. It's not the age so much as the mileage.
Hey, that's the truth. I can tell you about that. Hey, in the previous show, man, you said that one of the quotes that kind of stood out that you said was, "I work for the Constitution. My department signs my paycheck." Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, as I don't know if people saw the episode with TC, but like TC says, there's a social contract between pretty much all humans, right? Are all citizens of America, and that contract is the Constitution. So being part of that society, even as a law enforcement officer, that contract is the Constitution. We work for the Constitution. We enforce the Constitution and the government that was set up by it. So, like that's just between a citizen and a police officer. That's the set of rules, right? That they've agreed to follow and we've agreed to enforce. And so it's like you can't be, if you're mad at a law or you're angry with a law or you don't like a law, then that is, there's a constitutional process for changing that. It's not the law enforcement officer's job to amend that law or change the law on the fly or anything like that. That, the social contract is the Constitution. So law enforcement officers work for the Constitution.
Yeah, when I heard you say that, I thought, well, that's kind of a cute metaphor. I like it, but in reality, it really it's almost as simple as that. Because I think to your reference about TC, I like his explanation about the widget. The community has decided through representative government or representative democracy, which is what we have here in America, that we're going to outlaw that widget, and then we codify it into law. It's ratified, and then you, I should say, as an agent of the law, goes out and enforces it without passion or prejudice. Yeah. And that's the way it should be. And if you don't like it, Andrew, should they? Let me ask you this question: if they don't like a law, they being the citizens governed by that law, should they A, burn and loot a target, or B, get involved at the local political level?
That's a tough one. I'm gonna have to. This should involve politics. One of the biggest problems that I see in America, in my opinion, is that laws are made a lot of times in haste. They are, like you'll have a law on like national parks, right? And there'll be some earmark, some little sideline over here, and all they're using it for is a political tool, right? So it's like if me and you are on the opposite sides of the aisle up in Washington, and this bill for these beautiful national parks comes through, but Rich Brown slides an earmark in there for some, sketchy shit. And I say, well, no, I don't want that bill based on the earmark, not the rest of the bill. Then you come out into the news and say, well, Andrew doesn't like beautiful national parks. I mean, right. Why anyone vote for this guy? He doesn't like beautiful national parks. It's like, why? That's not how this works. So it's almost like the system has been bastardized by those in power, and the only people it's screwing are those of us that go to work and pay taxes.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, man. That's it's a simple thing, but it's an important one, and I hope people understand the distinction that we're trying to make there. But before we go any further, please hit that share button and share this content with someone that needs to see it. Once again, we're talking about reasonable solutions on today's shows and giving you another way to think about some of the problems that we're faced with. If you're just joining us, my name is Rich Brown. This is Coffee with Rich. I'm the co-host and co-founder of the American Warrior Show, America's #1 self-defense podcast. And today I've got my good friend, Patrol Sergeant, SWAT operator, Andrew Keith from the GunJitsu Podcast. And we are discussing all kinds of stuff this morning. Let's see here, man. The current climate that we're in with regard to what's going on in America, man, I tell you what, to watch the news is pretty doom and gloom. What does the current state of unrest have to teach us in terms of racial justice and equality, if anything?
I mean, I think people have a misguided idea of what equality is, right? I think what people really want is fairness. They don't want equality. I assure you, you do not want equality, because equality is like a police officer pulls you over, you get a ticket. Guess what? The next person he pulls over, they get a ticket. And the next person after that, they get a ticket. And so on and so forth until you have these robotic law enforcers, right? Where, you know, it's like, okay, well, if I pull one car over and it's Rich Brown with his heavy right foot, you know, going a little fast, he gets a ticket. The next person I pull over, well, maybe it's some, you know, young guy in his 20s driving his wife to the hospital because she's in labor right now. Tough. I'm equal, right? Equality. I'm equal. Tough. He doesn't get a break. I write him a ticket too, right? So there's no like humanity involved in equality. Equality is just if A, you do B, for everyone across the board, always and forever. So people don't want equality, right? Because it's not really fair. You know, true equality is, you know, I guess you could say it's the fairest of the system. People want the humanity, right? You want to be able to say, hey, my wife's in labor, that's why I'm speeding. And the officer go, okay, you know, I'll help you get to the hospital, or, you know, hey, be careful driving these speeds. You know, you want that human interaction. You don't want, you know, Domo Arigato RoboCop out there just constantly just the law said this and you must do this. You know, you don't want that. That becomes like Judge Dredd kind of level of policing, and no one wants that, because then there's no humanity, there's no understanding. It's just A, then B, then C, always, no matter who you are. You know, and as far as like racial injustice, it's like we live in the least racist time in America, period. Now, are there racist people in America? Absolutely. There'll always be racist people. There'll always be stupid people who just don't like you because you drive a Ford, or they don't like you because they just don't like your face, or they don't like some other group of people for some stupid reason, right? There'll always be racist people. But we don't have Jim Crow laws. We don't have slavery. We don't have, you know, segregation. You know, it's like, you say the system is racist, show me. You know, right. Show me where it's racist. And that's I've had this conversation before. It's like, you know, back when Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement was gaining steam and getting ready to pass and all that, it was really easy because you could take, you know, Black America could go, hey, look, you can use that bathroom and I have to use this bathroom. And there was a clear difference in those two. And people could see it and go, you know what, that's not right. That doesn't look right. That we should change that. But, you know, if you're going to scream and use the term systemic racism over and over, I'm going to need more than systemic racism, because when I go out and I'm out here enforcing the law and I see the people that work for me and the people I work with, and I don't see them doing things like this, then it's really hard for me to get on board and say, oh yeah, the system's racist, because I don't see a racist system. Is the system perfect? No. The system will never be perfect because it was invented by humans, has humans in it. So perfection's out the window. So we should always be trying to make the system better. But, you know, these people that are out here burning things down and looting and all of that, they don't have any idea. They're going off their small world perception of maybe an incident that they had or an incident they heard about, you know, or they're just flat out being mind controlled by the media, right? If I show you, you know, if I tell you that orange monsters are bad, and every day on the news, all you hear is orange monsters are bad. Here's a case of a guy cutting his lip on the top. Here's a case of a guy having a stroke because he drank 40 of them in a day. And I keep showing you this over and over and over. Eventually it sinks into your mind that these are evil. And energy drinks aren't great for you, kids. So, take your vitamins, drink a lot of water. But you know what I'm saying? It's just, if you keep telling the same lie over and over again, you're going to convince a lot of people that it's true.
Yeah, that's true. I want to get to, and if you have a questions for Andrew, please leave them in the comments below. Let's get here to TC's point. He says, people forget there's a difference between equality of opportunity and equality of outcome. Too many conflate the two. I think he's absolutely right. I think everyone here in America has equality of opportunity. Obviously, equality of outcome has to deal with a whole lot of other variables that are multidimensional, and but I think his point is, people say equality of opportunity, and they say, well, I should have exactly what Rich has, or Andrew has, or I should be as good a shooter as Mike Seeklander has. Well, that's not going to be the case because of a whole host of reasons. Mike, yeah, Seeklander asked the question: where does Andrew see the state of law enforcement in, say, 5 years or even 10 years?
Man, I mean, I don't know specifically, but I can tell you this: it's not going to be anywhere good. It's not going to be anywhere good at all. We've got guys leaving now, guys and gals, police officers that are good officers that have a lot of training and a lot of experience. Because, with anything else, and a guy like Mike can understand this, especially because of his background, but even in relation to people who shoot, right? When you go step on the stage in that first match, I don't care how good you've practiced. I don't care if your first classification in USPSA was GM, right? If all you've done was shown up, shot a classifier match, you got your GM card, but you've never shot a match or anything before, there's an experience component to that match. A dude like Seeklander, I don't care what kind of GM you are, if you haven't shot a match and you go shoot a match against Mike, he's going to kick your ass, because there's an experience that can't be gained anywhere but shooting a match, understanding the pressure, understanding the stage playing. That's a skill within itself. And so we're losing guys and gals with that experience level on the daily, man. Like, they're leaving all the time. And more people are getting out of law enforcement, for the same reason, right? You find a job making the same amount of money and less of the old bullshit. You turn on the TV and it's evil racist cop on every news channel. A lot of times you don't see it so much. Like, we don't see it in this community because we've done a pretty good job with our community-oriented policing. But it's still out there. You have to go to the protests when they're protesting you. When I say you, I mean law enforcement. You're out there, like doing the traffic and doing all the controls so they can have a safe protest against you, right? And they can scream about how racist you are and all of this when you're just standing there making sure they have a good time or whatever you do at a protest. So it's like that constant bombardment. And so what happens is, when you get that experience level leaving and you get that training level leaving, you've got a problem. Because your numbers to police your city are sinking like the Titanic. Your process to get officers in is a year long. And you got to do background checks, polygraphs, train them in the academy. You've got to do all these things, so you can only minimize that process, that year-long process, so much until you just whittle it down to it has to be this long. And even then, you're only getting a basically trained police officer out the back end when you're losing an officer with 10 years of experience. So your standards, or your quality of policing, where you would normally take that basically trained officer, you put them on a squad of a bunch of people with good experience, good officers with good experience. They start gaining that experience quickly. They're learning from those guys, continually, until they're one of the experienced officers. Well, now, if people keep getting out with experience and you keep throwing these new officers in there, you basically got the blind leading the blind. It's like one of those places like, oh, you'll make sergeant in 2 years if you stay here. It's like, well, that's not doing anything but dropping your quality. And so people keep complaining about policing and all this stuff and not working for solutions. They just want to yell and scream and burn down cities. That's fine. Like I put in the comments on TC's episode, you can do away with police officers with the stroke of a pen. All it takes is a politician signing it into law that we don't need the police anymore, and it is done. Because I assure you, most of us, if you quit paying us, we'll probably quit showing up. Because we have families to feed and things too. So it's like, I don't do police work for free. I've got responsibilities that I have to pay for. So I'm afraid the quality in 5 years, you're going to see a big difference. In 10 years, you may see a lot of difference. You're going to start seeing younger and younger policemen with a lot less experience and probably a lot less training because, you're losing people rapidly. So we've got to whittle that training down to what's the bare minimum. And it's like, well, who do you want to show up on your call? Especially Rich Brown gets into an argument with his neighbor, right? Do you want a guy with 10, 15 years experience there that's handled problems like this and can work out some solution that would please you both? Or do you want a brand new rookie there who only knows like, well, let me look in the book, and try to figure out what's going on? That's not bashing any of you rookies out there. It's just, that's the nature of the beast, right?
Yeah, it is the nature of the beast. Let's get to some of the comments. But before I do, please hit that share button. We were up to 70 there for a moment. I think we got 66 on now. Please take a quick second and hit the share button. As you can see, very timely topics today with the guy who's out there standing on that thin blue line for all of us. Rick says the system is not systematically racist. It's racists within the system that are causing the problems. Perhaps, Rick, it also could be a misperception on the part of the public as to the role of law enforcement. And I will throw this out to Andrew. What exactly is the role of law enforcement, Andrew? And before you answer, I'll give you a contained choice, my friend. It is A, to protect and serve, or is it B, to enforce the law?
Well, considering protect and serve was the motto of the LAPD, not a nationwide law, I would say that it is to enforce the law.
Without passion or prejudice, it is enforce the law. Now, are you going to have racists out there enforcing the law? Sure. You're going to have white people, brown people, tall people, short people, fat people, skinny people. They're just people, man. And they're flawed, like Andrew alluded to a moment ago, but they do the best they can. The laws that they're enforcing are also equally flawed.
Absolutely. I mean, there's something like just under 1 million police officers, I believe, in America, right? I would be foolish to think that every single one of those, that there wasn't a single person in there that could be deemed racist. If you could really get inside their mind and start seeing what they think. Are some of them probably racist? Absolutely. I mean, just having a logical approach and saying, well, considering humans are never all one way and all the other way, well, then, yeah, there's going to be some in there. But there are mechanisms in place to weed those out. Like people, think, well, you complain on a police officer, it doesn't go anywhere. That's not true. If you complain about an interaction with an officer, it gets looked into. Here's what gets most people. When you start that complaint and there's like this much truth, and then you feel like you got to add this much fluff and lies, that's where your complaint gets nowhere. Because as soon, if somebody complains on one of my officers for being rude or whatever, once I catch them in a lie, their testimony after that, just like court, doesn't mean a whole lot because they've already lied. And so now I don't know what's a lie and what's not, because in a situation, if you tell 35 lies, I may be only since I wasn't there, monitoring the interaction with that officer and that citizen, I don't know what's a lie and what's the truth after that. It's like I do know I've caught you in this lie because people call in all the time, and this is probably the biggest lie. He wouldn't give me his name and badge number. and I'll look on the camera or on the audio and video, and you'll plainly hear them, what's your name? What's your badge number? Blah, blah, and they'll tell them. And I'm like, you literally told the simplest of lies that now discredits almost everything you say. Now, yeah, you still look into it and make sure there's no obvious, things that you can find, somebody just, an officer just punching somebody for no reason kind of thing. But their testimony of this guy was rude to me, he did this, he did that. Once you start to lie and add those lies, that little bit of possible truth or possible actual complaint you had or misunderstanding starts to erode away, because the lies just got it all muddied up. And so it's like, now I don't know what's the truth and what's a lie.
Yeah, and I think the line thing goes both ways. I once heard someone say, policing comes down to procedural correctness in the execution of unquestionable moral authority or something like that. Well, the moral authority to be a police officer, I think, is an imperative one, and one that I don't think anybody should surrender lightly. So, but again, it's like, which is one of the reasons why when I was a police officer, I might, you made a point earlier, Andrew, about selective enforcement, right? I'm not going to just give everybody a ticket. There's a grandma in there that doesn't necessarily need a ticket, or heck, the first person I ever pulled over as a police officer had his Tennessee tag was a Pearl Harbor survivor tag. I don't even know if they have them like that anymore, because there may not be many of them left alive, but I didn't write that guy a ticket, man. We survived Pearl Harbor, for God's sake. Does he need a ticket for going 9 miles an hour over the speed limit?
Exactly.
Not necessarily, no. But go ahead.
Yeah, so you have to have that discretion. You have to, because then it becomes inhuman if you don't.
Yeah, let's get to some of the questions here. Let's see. And please like and share. Rasmus says, good morning. Rick says, why aren't slander and libel laws being prosecuted and enforced? Rick, you have a good point. And I'll tell you, one of the problems we have in America right now is the politicization of the district attorney position. And because they have qualified immunity, they can bring charges on any of these officers or people like Kyle Rittenhouse. It's like, guys, why are you Officer Rolfe? Why is Officer Rolfe being charged with murder in the death of Rashad Brooks? I don't see it. And there was 5 or 6 different camera angles of that shooting. And, that you have these district attorneys out there that can say and do whatever they want without any kind of fear. I don't know, Andrew, what do you think?
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword with qualified immunity, right? A lot of people don't really understand what qualified immunity is. And, I'm no legal scholar, right? But qualified immunity protects officers from a whole bunch of frivolous lawsuits. It also protects them from their personal assets getting seen. Now, we live in a big cancel culture now, which is like, well, if Rich Brown doesn't say anything I like, or doesn't say something that I like, I want to take his house, I want to take his car, I want to get his wife to divorce him, I want to get his kids to disown him. It's like, because we disagree, people want to burn down this other person's life, and it's bullshit. But, qualified immunity, I'll tell you right now, if they do away with qualified immunity, I'm done. You're on your own. I'm not losing my house. I'm not losing my car. I'm not losing, things I've worked for simply because, these silly, frivolous lawsuits, simply because someone doesn't agree with the grand jury's decision to not bring charges against an officer.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. If I was still a police officer today, that would be the line in the sand, because I don't know, a lot of civilians don't know the law anymore. And I think we need to go back to teaching civics, man, because I'll give you an example. Qualified immunity protects you from a civil charge, doesn't necessarily protect you from a criminal charge. And the burden of proof, as a lot of our viewers will know, for a criminal charge is beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, is that 85%, 90%, 99%? I don't know what it is, but it's beyond a reasonable doubt. Whereas a civil suit, as I understand it, needs a preponderance of the evidence. And I've often heard it said that it's 51%. So just slightly tip the scale. Did the officer maybe act inappropriately? Yeah, maybe kind of. Okay, great. Take his house, take his car, take his kids, take his hamsters. He loses everything. And that's what qualified immunity protects. Now, there's one caveat to that. And that is, you, as I understand it, Andrew, you correct me if I'm wrong, you have to be acting within the color of law, and that what you were doing as a police officer was procedurally correct and lawful at the time that you did it, which is why I said a moment ago that law enforcement requires procedural correctness in the execution of unquestionable moral authority. What say you, sir?
Yeah, that's what a lot of people don't understand about qualified immunity, right? Qualified immunity simply means that if I act under the color of law and I follow my departmental procedures, then you cannot come after my personal assets. So if I do those things and something is wrong, like let's say, you talk about the George Floyd incident, right? So let's say they taught that officer that technique in defensive tactics. And they said the department itself, whatever research they did before they did their defensive tactics program, said for whatever reason, knee on the back of the neck is a great technique for getting somebody into custody. And the department trained their officers to do that. Then that officer will now have qualified immunity because he was told that that's a good technique and he could do that. Right. And so if he didn't, and they even said in the defensive tactics program, hey, don't ever put your knee on somebody's neck. That's never good. We don't teach that here. Keep your knees off their neck when at all possible. That's a red area or a danger zone or whatever you want to talk about. And then he does it. Now he could possibly lose qualified immunity because he acted outside of departmental policy and departmental procedure. So the department doesn't have to protect him on that. They can say, we told him not to do it. You're on your own. So
that's right.
Qualified immunity.
Yeah. And I've told this story before, and I'll say it one more time. There has to be some common sense in here somewhere, man, because there's not a lot of legalese and fine print on these tools that are given to officers, and that ambiguity is somewhat purposeful. So, for example, like the technique that was authorized and that Derek Chauvin incorrectly used, let's say, for a host of reasons, was a great technique. I highly encourage that technique. I've done it, Andrew. I'm sure you've done it. Put your knee on someone's upper back, neck, whatever. I'm not going to jam my knees on the pavement 20 times a day. I'm going to put them on the suspect. I'm going to take them into custody, and that's going to be that. But it doesn't mean you can hold your knee on there indefinitely, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like my biggest problem was not necessarily the placement of his knee. It was the length of time he spent on top of him. Like, that's just, to me, that was just a poor decision. Pick him up, stick him in the car, or just let him sit up against the car. As long as he's not trying to get up and run away, I really don't care what he's doing. Like, as long as we patted him down, we searched him, cuffed him, all that stuff. He's sitting there. Like, as long as he's not trying to hop up and run off, then who really cares? Like, why do I need to keep him really pinned to the ground? And there was some talk in there about excited delirium and things like that. And, maybe I read somewhere about some training maybe Minneapolis had where they said, okay, when they have excited delirium, hold them down or something like that, which is to me kind of outdated, because excited delirium is one of those things like they're on a spiral to death based on the drugs in their system. And the only real answer is to get them to a hospital before they crash. And sometimes you don't make it because somebody who's experiencing excited delirium due to the narcotics in their system is really hard to catch, really hard to control. And, wrangling them up and getting them to the hospital is one of those things that's very, very much easier said than done.
Yeah. And on that point, man, I forgot my train of thought a moment ago, but the point I was trying to make about common sense in regard to policing is, so I get hired to go and do a train the trainer seminar for defensive tactics probably 20 years ago, and with a large metropolitan sheriff's department. And I train them, and they get excited, and they call me and say, hey, man, we used your training model to get accreditation. So that's what we're trying to do. We're excited. I'm like, fantastic. I go back to teach another course of instruction. And the first thing they say is, did you get your subpoena? I'm like, subpoena for what? Like, well, you taught us the front thrust kick, and one of our officers front thrust kicked an handcuffed inmate down a set of stairs. So just where in the policy that you wrote does it say that they can't do that? Well, come on, man.
Yeah.
I can't write that. I can't write every single thing into there. There has to be common sense when and how and why you should use a technique. What do you think, Andrew?
Common sense is an uncommon virtue.
Yeah. Leave it at that.
And you have to put those things in. This whole, this whole model of training that is hopefully starting to break down in the law enforcement community is all about the certificate and not much about the skills, right? Because, you can go to a defensive tactics course, you can go to Gracie Combatives and spend 40 hours, and they do a phenomenal job teaching some jujitsu in 40 hours that can be retained, right? They do a great job. If you ever get a chance to go to Gracie Combatives, go. But you can't, in 40 hours, you can't learn much of anything that you can retain, right? You might retain out of all the Gracie Combatives techniques. If you go home and you don't practice any of them and you don't review any of them and you don't try to get these to stick into your long-term memory, you're going to retain very little that you can access at speed on the street. But law enforcement has become certificate based, but you got the certificate, right?
You're an SME now, bro.
You got the certificate, so you're the subject matter expert. Where did it say to do this? And it's like, it's literally something you may have seen in that course, but you can't access it in your brain in the middle of a fight because it's just not, you're not at that level of learning with that technique yet. It's me and Cody talk about, my partner on the GunJitsu podcast and also black belt in jiu-jitsu, is, we were talking one day and he was saying, you probably know as many techniques as I do. He's like, I don't have a vast library of techniques, but he can apply them at speed. He can apply them faster. Basically, it's recognition prime decision making, right? He can take very little information, make a decision, and counter what I'm going to do long before I've even gotten very deep in the technique at all. So I was
going to say, Andrew, it's contextual, right?
What?
It's contextual, right?
But
placing the technique in the proper context.
Oh.
Like, for example, front thrust kick on a handcuffed inmate. That's not the appropriate context for that technique, right?
And it's like, people will go to a class or something and they'll find a technique that they fall in love with. And then they get to where it's like they're trying to make the scenario fit where they can use what they have learned. And it's like, it's just like jiu-jitsu. If you show a white belt an arm bar, I can guarantee you that he's always going to try to go for that arm bar. So it's like, okay, well, I can bait him and stick my arm out there, and I know exactly what he's going to do. And as soon as he goes, I'm past. So it's like, because he only knows this one technique, so he's going to try it all the time because it's all they know. And law enforcement, there is a problem with training in law enforcement. There needs to be more of it continuously, because you can't learn anything in 40 hours. And I tell people all the time, you have to excuse my language, but 40 hours doesn't make you an expert on shit. And we know that expertise takes something like 10,000 hours. But yet we're issuing certificates and telling people they're SMEs on things in 40. It makes no sense.
Right.
And so, like, if you really want to talk about, I know one of your questions on there that we discussed earlier is about defunding the police. You don't need to defund the police. You need to give them more money, more time, more training. You want an officer out there. You got to define what your ideal officer is, and then figure out how much your budget and your city can support. Because when we talk about an ideal officer, what would you want the perfect officer to be? A lawyer. You'd at least want an officer that has a Juris Doctorate in law. I think that would be good, right? I want an officer that's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I want an officer that is a USPSA at least master. Grandmaster would be ideal. And maybe an officer that has some race car driving experience. So we've got some control and some pursuits, right? So these are like just the big four. There's plenty of other things. Maybe an officer that's also got a degree in psychology and mental health. Something in that field too. So you get all of that, right? Let's say that person shows up. You think they're going to be a policeman for $40,000 a year? With all of that, they could go easily make $250,000 a year or more. They can make a ton of money. They could be independently wealthy, like our good friend T.C. Fuller, the most learned man I know. You know, they could do that. So how are you going to pay them $40,000 a year and expect them to show up? They're going to be like, no, I'm going to go over here and make a lot more money. So then you have to decide, okay, well, what do we want? What can we live with? Can we live with a C-class shooter? Can we live with a blue belt in jiu-jitsu? Can we teach enough law that this person can start to apply this at speed? Can we teach some mental health training that gets them a little further down this road as opposed to having nothing? We have a CIT program that's a crisis intervention training, and it's really good stuff. They go into some mental health and kind of train officers on, you know, when someone's having a mental health crisis, they can intervene and try to, you know, God, I hate to use the term de-escalate because a lot of people say, oh, de-escalate everything, right? De-escalate's not a magic pill. But so they can attempt to talk this person out of this crisis and let this person see they're here to help them, as opposed to just, well, he's going crazy, let's run over there and tackle him and cuff him up. You know, so all those things cost money. So you have to figure out in your city, what level of policing do we want to pay for? And then you have to continually do that training and keep that person's skills sharp. You can't just do it every other year in defensive tactics and expect them to be able to apply those techniques at speed. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I agree with you. And if you look at models for like what was a perfect operation, you know, the hostage rescue at Prince's Gate by the British Special Air Service back in 1980, 81, whenever it was. Great movie, 6 Days if you haven't seen it. But those guys are incredibly well-trained. They're hand-selected, a very arduous year-long pipeline to even get into the squadron. And when you're there, you have one squadron that's standing up, ready to go. You have another squadron in rest and another squadron in training at all times. And, you know, that takes a lot of money to have that level. If you want that kind of precision where they can go in, hit a multi-story armed structure like an embassy and save every hostage but one, and kill all the bad guys but one, I mean, that's incredible. And you're just not going to find that. So I think that goes to Robert's point, and he says a lesson all people need to learn: regulate your own life behavior, and the less the government, including police, will be inclined to regulate you. So to his point, Andrew, it goes back to something you were saying. It would appear from some of the things that I've read that Mr. George Floyd had a fatal ×3 fatal dose of fentanyl in his system. Now, when you go out into the community, you pass counterfeit currency, you take fatal doses of fentanyl, and you act like you're undergoing excited delirium. Who's there to regulate that type of behavior in a community?
Yeah.
The police. And guess what the outcome's going to look like?
It's like, you know, a lot of people can't seem to understand. It's like, you know, people don't want to go to jail. You know, they don't want to. Some people don't want to worse than others. You know, some people will verbally protest. You know, I don't want to go to jail, you know, this or that, whatever. And then some people are willing to have a physical altercation. And, you know, a lot of people don't realize that. Like, enforcing the law, there are people that just don't want to lose their freedom. And sometimes you have to make them. You have to make them go into handcuffs. You have to make them go to jail. They don't go willingly. You know, and so sometimes they choose some really violent choices to avoid going to jail. You know, some of these people who think they're going back to prison, you know, for the remainder of their lives, they feel like they have nothing to lose. So, of course, they're going to shoot it out with the cops. They're going to try, you know, the most violent means necessary to escape, to get one more day of freedom. Well, guess what happens when you choose those violent means? Violent ends.
Yeah. I saw an interesting thing recently. Then I got some more questions for you, Andrew. And please like and share. If you're just joining us, my name is Rich Brand. This is Coffee with Rich on the American Warrior Show. We also have the America's #1 self-defense podcast, the American Warrior Show and the American Warrior Society.
I've taken over your show. This is Monsters with Andrew today, not not coffee with Rick.
Yeah, good luck with that. Hey, but what I was going to say, Andrew, please like it, sir. What I was going to say was I saw something recently that said no police officers should be risking their own life and safety so that you can safely resist arrest. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's kind of a long way around. But yeah, I mean, resisting arrest is illegal. And, no police officer should be hesitant about using force when it's needed. They shouldn't hesitate to do any of that. A lot of times, and that's where a lot of training comes in, is we see these videos a lot. And how many videos have you watched where you're like, man, if an officer would just run up and tackle that guy, this wouldn't have gotten worse, right? Like there was one out there. It was a while back. I want to say it was from somewhere in North Carolina, and there's a man out there with no shirt on. He's wearing, I believe, like black pants, and he's just swinging at the police the whole time. And they're trying to run in with batons and whack him in the legs and all that crap, and it's just not working. And this goes on, and there's like 5 police officers. One will run up to whack him. He'll take some swings, maybe get some hits. Another one will come up and try to whack him in the leg with the baton. He'll turn around, take some swings, maybe get some hits. And finally, what stopped it is some old dude just runs up and tackles him. And it's like, well, if that worked, if we'd have done that 5 minutes ago, this would all have been over sooner. So a lot of times it's like, if you get force here, like, you have to think about it in what's safest for everyone, right? So if I go to arrest someone and they start pulling away and showing me that they're not going to go into handcuffs willingly, well, if I wrap them up, take them to the ground, get on top of them, get them turned over, and get them cuffed up as quickly as possible, that's safest for them and me, right? Because the longer this fight goes on, the worse it's going to get. As they start getting tired, they may get more and more desperate. Or we're just going to have a 5-minute fight when we could have had a 30-second fight. So a lot of times when the force goes here, if you go there, you can get it right back under control. But if we work in like suspect does this, then officers do this, then suspect does this, then officers do this, we just wind up inching this thing further and further down the rabbit hole to a very negative outcome for the most part. It's just like the Rodney King thing, right? A lot of those officers were acquitted because that was a technique taught back in the early 90s. But if you see, they're all hitting him with batons and it's not being effective. And I tell people a lot, it's success versus effective, right? If I punch you in the mouth and my knuckles make contact with your face, I'm successful. If it doesn't change your behavior and it doesn't get you to, turn around and put your hands behind your back, then it's not effective. So just because you're successful with a baton strike doesn't mean it's an effective technique for that situation.
No, I agree with you. And I think what's often forgotten when we talk about Rodney King are the 2 gentlemen that were in the car with him that night, 2 African-American gentlemen that were intoxicated in the car with him that night. And Rodney King is the only one that made headlines. The other 2 were released on their own recognizance, just walk away from the scene as soon as it was over with because they complied.
Yeah. That happened. I vaguely remember it. I'm sure you were probably on your like 20th year as a Marine.
I was on my 3rd deployment, but yeah, thank you.
Kind of old guy.
Yeah. Let's see here. We got some comments. Let's see.
Yeah, a lot of it too is, I think people, especially today of all days to be on your show, I'd like to mention that a lot of people have kind of forgotten who ran into that building. Those 2 buildings, you got officers running in there. Did they have to? Are they required to by law? No.
That's a great point, Andrew.
Every officer in that area went in.
That's a great point, man. And 19 years ago today, if you're not catching Andrew's subtle references, today is September the 11th when we're filming this. So if you're watching the replay, thanks for watching. If you're on with us live, you know where you were this morning on September the 11th. And just in a moment, Andrew, I'd like to ask you where you were that morning. But your point is well made and well taken. And I hope everybody hears what Andrew's saying. Those officers didn't have to run in that building. There was no law being broken, because that's the tenet of law enforcement, is to enforce the law. They were running there to save lives, period. As all the civilians were running out, firefighters and law enforcement were running in, and they certainly didn't have to, but they did. So great point, sir. Get to a thing here, TC. TC left this comment, says, you get the level of policing that you pay for. The more knowledge, skills, and abilities you want, the more you have to pay for. Lower the standards, the less you pay. But the quality of your policing is likely to be reflected therein. And I'll use a case in point. I wrote an article recently on AmericanWarriorSociety.com about an incident I had on the farm. Somebody was trying to burglarize my truck, what have you. No big deal. I'll never know exactly what he was trying to do out there, but ended up de-escalating the situation, getting him back in his truck, getting him off my property with that issue. And a very liberal friend of mine, who's a social worker, she said, why did you do that? Why didn't you call the police? And I said, well, no disrespect, and I'm not trying to be cocky or overconfident, but I'm better trained than whoever may or may not have shown up at my house that night, because they pay $25,000 a year where I live. Yeah. And I know what's going to show up. I mean, no disrespect to the officers that live here in this county. They're great men and women doing the best that they can with what they got, but I doubt any of them have the level of training that I have after, 3 years in law enforcement, 23 years as a Marine, et cetera, and years as a martial artist and competitive shooter. So what do you think, man?
Well, I mean, like you talk about these smaller departments like that, and they don't get a lot of training, and, they've got all the heart in the world, but having the heart is not having the training. It can lead to negative outcomes. That's a possibility, because the training's not there. It takes more than willpower, right? A lot of people can want to be good at jiu-jitsu, but until you go and you get the training, you're just, that desire is not going to be enough. So it's a training issue, man. And I don't know if you've heard, like, Jocko Willink, I think he was on Rogan's podcast, yeah. And he talked about that, like spinning up for a deployment. You train for a while before you get kicked out to a deployment. It's the same with law enforcement. If you are, like, I work 4 days on and 3 days off. One of those days is an overlap where if you're on weekdays or weekends, right, there's an overlap there where that day in the middle, one shift's kind of on their way out to their days off and the other shift is coming in. You could easily make that day a training day where every officer, every shift, they're either first day or last day, whichever one you choose, that overlap day, one of those squads is training the full day, a full 10 hours of training every time. Every shift, right? So it's like, okay, let's say we've got trying to look at, it's all reversed in my camera, right? So we've got our weekday officers and our weekend officers that overlap on this day. So these guys are coming out. So let's say every week they get 1 10-hour day of training. And then next week or the next month when they flip-flop, the other squad will get four 10-hour days in a month. Think about how much training that is. Every other month, you're getting 40 hours of training.
Yeah, I like that.
A year, man. That's a ton of training in a year.
It is.
And you can't make decisions at speed. It's just like, it's just like when you take Sealander's class about shooting, right? We can sit here and do the long, slow trigger press all day long, but taking Mike's class is going to get you to making those decisions and performing those fundamentals at speed. Because at speed is where things happen. The whole, like, surprise trigger break, let me slowly press the trigger, pow. That's okay, if you've never picked up a gun before and we're kind of getting started into the process. But if you're looking to get trained, for either competitive shooting or protecting yourself, you have to learn how to do those things at speed. They have to be at a level that is above your opponent. And so you're going to have to be able to get that gun out, get it into action, line the sights up, press the trigger, start breaking good shots without moving the gun at a speed that's much higher than just being on the flat range and being like, well, I'll shoot that tin can over there. I mean, that's not the speed of life, man.
I want to get to some of the questions here, Andrew. I totally agree with that. Rick says, LMAO, armchair quarterbacking is getting out of control. Do the training and then walk a mile in their shoes before you criticize. Well said. And I think that's one of the things that if we got back to civics class in America and American high schools, make them go.
Comrade.
Huh?
They don't want us to have civics, comrade.
Yeah, I know.
Then we we would start to understand the shift in this country, the push of communism, the very slight and subtle things that like Facebook is putting in your mind as you scroll by. They control what you see. They control what you see, and they control the information you get. Then they control you.
Yeah, we were talking about that on the range, I think, recently, Andrew. You know that what's the algorithm doing to America, man, when it's feeding you this constant stream of stuff that it thinks you want to see?
Oh, it's mind-boggling, dude. I was born in 1980. Okay, I was born during the Reagan administration, right? I remember the Cold War. I remember all that stuff with the Russians and we're always sitting here at this constant state, Red Dawn movies. We're afraid the Russians are going to come and get us. We don't like communism. Growing up, I had uncles and relatives that fought in Vietnam against the communists and all this. So for like 30 years, we had battled the communists. I would have never thought that in my lifetime, some jackass would run for president on a socialist/communist platform. I'm talking about you, Bernie Sanders. Quintessential definition of your average socialist and communist, right? Because he's got like 9 houses. He's got like really nice ass cars. So it's like that's what they did in Russia. That's why communism never works, because people like Bernie Sanders and all those jackasses at the top get all the money through their corruption, and the people are left poor. It's like, man, to me, that's mind-boggling. Growing up in an era where we're afraid the communists and the Russians are going to invade us or bomb us or whatever, growing up as a kid, and now there's some wild-haired, imbecile old man up there running on a communist/socialist platform. Like, what in the hell? How quick did that happen? And that happens through the educational program or the education. When you control that message, you control the output. And so that's what I'm saying. You got these kids graduating college that don't know their ass from a hole in the ground, and they think socialism's a good idea. Why? Because they don't know any better. Because they have been controlled, comrade.
And as you can tell, viewers, Andrew's monster drink is finally starting to kick in. So we're finally, the veil of civility has fallen away. And Andrew is going some places today that are going to be pretty fun to check out. So please hit that share button. You're not going to miss where we're heading next. I want to talk. Hey, good morning, Gilly from the Philippines. Glad to have you, sir. I want to talk about a point that Rudy makes here, Andrew. And I think you were kind of talking when you were giving your little thing about that. His point is gradual escalation was one of the tactics that did not work out well for the U.S. during the Vietnam conflict. The lessons is to apply maximum legal force quickly. And I would absolutely agree with that. One of the things that made me a better police officer was that I had been a bouncer for about 4 years, worked at a lot of different clubs. So I knew how to use what I refer to as escalation dominance. I'm going to escalate it's going to be the minimum level of force, but it's going to be a force that you've probably never felt before. You're going to be handled in a way that is going to leave no ambiguity as to who's in control, and we're going to get you out of the club safely as possible. And I will tell you this too, man. What's interesting about being a bouncer is the club owner doesn't want you to hurt those patrons. He wants the money from those patrons. So it was never in a bouncer's best interest or the club's best interest or the owner's best interest to hurt or harm anyone. But at the same time, when you have, 1,000 or 2,000 club patrons in there and 4 bouncers, you have to establish dominance quickly. And I'm not going to play patty cake with you. What say you, Andrew? Because you were a bouncer as well.
Yeah, I mean, and even in police work, you're not trying to hurt these people. You don't, for the most part, go out. Now, something like an active shooter, yeah, obviously we're running in there and there's going to be some pain and some violence bestowed upon that person, but you kind of go into that knowing it because they've already jacked the violence up so high that what level you've got to meet or exceed to control that situation. your average, pulling away when you're trying to get handcuffs and things like that, you can't just inch that forward, because that just makes it worse, right? They punch you, you punch them, they punch you, you punch them. And that just, until somebody gets tired, and that leads to a lot more injury for the officers and the suspect. Where it's like, if you've never taken judo, which I know you have, you go to pull away and some judo guy foot sweeps you to the ground and, puts a knee on your belly and starts telling you to turn over while he's wrenching your arm up behind your back. You typically are guided to a much more compliant place. And so that ends that fight really quickly. Why? Not because the technique was magic, but because when the suspect goes here, you went here real quick and brought him right back down. So, and now, I think when you were a cop, they used minimal force necessary. Now the legal language is reasonable force.
Yeah.
And so that helped open it up to where you didn't have to do the inching thing, right? You could just go, suspect goes here, you go here real quick, and then right back down.
Yeah, our thing was reasonable, and I think it's the same title for TC's book, Reasonable, Necessary, and Justified Use of Well-Documented Force. And again, whatever level of force you use, man, you got to be able to document it and articulate why it was the appropriate amount. And one of the things with cameras is, I'm a big fan of cameras, man. We had them when I was a police officer. This was an early thing. I was mic'd up, had a camera on my car. I think that they're great because, like you said, Andrew, more often than not, it exonerates the law enforcement officer.
Absolutely. I want cameras. Cameras are fine. A lot of officers complain about the body camera. The only issue with the body cameras, they're still a little big, technology. And so it's just one more crap you got to have hanging off of you, because you're already kind of constricted. Having to, get into a fight in a Class A is not your ideal, uniform for getting into a fight with somebody, right? No other martial art is wearing a Class A type gi when they're out there.
When I was a police officer, the place where Mike and I trained, because a lot of us were corrections or law enforcement officers, so we would have special classes and we would wear our equipment and try the techniques and pressure test them and see what did and did not work when you're wearing that. Let's get to the next question, man.
All right.
Andrew, here in the United States, obviously there's a lot of talk about defund the police and all this other stuff, and that movement is starting to gain steam. Well, in South Africa, they did reimagine their police force after the end of apartheid in 1994. And of course, that didn't go very well and still is a problem for them. Are there any good examples where defunding the police or reimagining the police has been effective?
Not that I know of. Because
what does it look like, man? What are they talking about, Andrew? What are they trying to accomplish?
What they're going to do is get people injured. Do I agree to a certain extent that police officers are doing a lot more than just enforcing the law these days? Yeah, the mental health system is in shambles. Okay, so if you really want to try something, call your congressman and complain about the mental health system. Complain that they're shutting down all these facilities that people that are schizophrenic or severely bipolar or have these myriad of mental health issues, they have nowhere to go. So when they get out into society and their mental health is deteriorating, or they can't get to their meds, or they stop taking their meds and things like that, now you've put an officer in a no-win situation. If I get out here with a guy who's severely schizophrenic, right? It's not his fault. Because he's waving a knife around is not necessarily his fault. His brain is malfunctioning because he has a mental illness. But as a police officer, I have very limited resources or limited choices to deal with that. He's waving a knife around. I have to take that at face value so he doesn't hurt me or someone else. And so now, let's say he charges and we get into a shooting. Now I've shot this man who has an illness when he could have been in a facility. He could have been in a mental hospital. He could have been getting the treatment and and getting the treatment he deserved and the treatment he needed. But instead, he's shot by the police because the mental health system failed him, not because the officers do anything wrong. You know, so the mental health system is I don't know what changed in that to shut down all of these things, but it's a problem. That is the biggest problem. Most homeless people, most of your homeless population has a mental health, you know, issue or two. You know, they a lot of times self-medicate and things like that. And so they have very limited resources when if we had facilities to take them to, because cops only have one facility to take people to for the most part. In our city, we have a few little mental health things that we can take them to voluntarily if they choose to go. And that's been a recent addition to the way we police our city. And I think it's worked very well. And I think they're working on even more. Like I said, we've had our CIT program, I think is really good with trying to deal with people with mental health issues, because I'm not a mental health counselor. I have no degree in psychology or sociology or any of that. A lot of times with officers, we show up, there's a problem, and we need to deal with that problem. If it's a schizophrenic guy with a knife waving around and maybe we get a good taser shot and we somehow get him to drop the knife, well, now we cuff this guy up. Where's the best place for him to go? Jail or a mental health facility? In that case, a mental health facility would be best. Those don't exist. What are we left with? Jail.
Yeah.
And jail, turn that wheel of that cycle again for that guy. And, you know, we had a guy recently here in our city. Actually, one of the officers that worked for me ran the call, and he had committed suicide, and he was severely schizophrenic. And every officer I knew, he lived on their beat. Every officer that I knew, at least 3 to 4 officers had worked extensively trying to get him help, well above and beyond their call of duty. You know, they have a duty to answer the calls and leave, but a lot of them, at least I know 3 of them, that went above and beyond trying to get this man help. They knew his mother's phone number. They had tried to get this man help through several different places, and the mental health system let them down. And that man killed himself because he couldn't get the treatment that he needed, that they had been trying to get him for months. And he was severely schizophrenic with violent tendencies. A facility would have been a great place for him, not stuck out here in government housing.
I think that's a great point, Andrew. Please like and share. If you're just joining us, someone shared this and you're just popping on. My name is Rich Brown. This is Coffee with Rich. I'm the co-host and co-founder of the American Warrior Show and the American Warrior Society. And today I'm joined by SWAT operator, Patrol Sergeant Andrew Keith, also of the GunJitsu Podcast. I want to get to some of these comments, Andrew. Please like and share. We got more to come. Steve Washington says Newark, New Jersey restructured their police department to provide more training to their officers. And so on the idea of reimagining policing or, what have you, I think that there are some ways that it can be done. Andrew, to your point, we get some maybe mental health workers that go on certain calls with police officers, or we're able to refer out some of that to them. I think that's a good thing, because I remember one time when I was going through some special operations training with the sheriff's department I was with, there was a hostage rescue that me and Mike Seeklander had to plan and conduct. And we went in hard. And at the end of it, they're like, well, when they were critiquing us, they said, well, why didn't you try to talk this guy down? I'm like, I'm not trained in that. And that's as simple as that. Why am I going to try to de-escalate someone holding a fake knife to an officer's throat? I don't have that skill. You know what skill I do possess? A skill to grapple and a skill to shoot. And that's what got done. So again, you got to send the right person to do the right job. You don't send the plumber in to wire the house. You know what I'm saying? You send the electrician.
Police have become a catch-all, well, we don't know what to do with this, or we're eliminating this. Well, who's going to do that now? Well, the cops will do it. When I first came on, we had to go to people's houses because their kids wouldn't go to school. People would call time and be like, hey, my kid won't go to school. And our protocol was basically go out there and drag the kid to school or convince them to go. Does that sound like really enforcing the law? You know, and that's what they do is like, you know, these politicians, they want to save money, cut money. They want to completely crumble the mental health programs or the mental health facilities and basically to gut that system. And then they know they're kicking all these people out into the street. So then they start pinning these bullshit laws so that cops have to go deal with it. And it's like, cops aren't mental health professionals. You can't just keep pushing all this stuff on them because that's not their job. You know, it's like, well, they've got guns, they'll be okay. You know, just send them out there to do that. It's like, no, man, I'm not equipped to start dealing with someone who's severely schizophrenic other than getting them wrangled up and controlled to where they can't hurt themselves or others. You know,
yeah.
Police have become a catch-all, and then now the politicians can't figure out why shit went south on them. It's like because you tried to use a hammer for everything, or you tried to use a screwdriver to drive a nail, and it didn't work out for you. Well, no shit. You know, it's like a screwdriver's not a hammer.
Well, and we saw this in the Marine Corps where we're sending, a 19, 20, 21-year-old Lance Corporal into a very dynamic situation with a lot of moral complexity as to which chieftain do I listen to, which warlord is a good warlord. It's very confusing. You've got civilians and then you've got, all these problems. So this is a challenging problem for anyone to solve. And one of the ways that the Marine Corps tried to tackle that was the 3-block war concept. And they started doing the training revolving around, our core tenets, honor, courage, commitment. This isn't a sales pitch for the Marine Corps. I'm going somewhere with this, Andrew. And I know you were a Marine as well. But this idea that on the first block, you have a peacekeeping operation, right? You got Marines handing out water bottles and soccer balls and all this kind of stuff that we really do. And then on the second block, you've got they're trying to keep warring factions apart, right? They're a peacekeeper. So the first block, humanitarian, second block, peacekeeping. On the third block, it's all out urban combat. All the gloves are off. And then you got that same group of Marines that rotate back to the first block at some point during the deployment. And that requires a lot of judgment, maturity, mental bandwidth, if you want to call it that. But if the police officer that arrives on the scene, I have a gun and a taser and whatever I got between my ears, right? And if they don't have if they're not well prepared, well trained, well equipped, they're going to fail that litmus test. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And like going back to Seeklander's question, the more you get, officers now are from this newer generation where most of their interaction with people, especially now with the COVID thing and being stuck at home, most of their interaction is over the internet where you can say whatever you want without getting punched in the mouth. And so they have a what I've noticed is when we have newer trainees over the past couple of classes, past a little bit, is they have a really hard time talking to people. Like both my grandfathers were the ones after church that were standing around talking, and all my grandmothers, were like, I wish they'd come on. Like they just, talk to people. They talk to everybody. And they were good at that. That generation was like that. And then my parents' generation is kind of the same way. They had that face-to-face interaction. I grew up without cell phones and computers, for the most part. I didn't get most of that until, probably high school or a little bit beyond. I didn't have my first cell phone until I bought it myself in my early 20s. And so I have a little bit more of that gift of gab, if you will, to talk to people on the street. I can make a conversation happen with somebody, as long as they're at least a bit willing, we can make something happen, but these new kids are, they're so used to doing this. It's almost like your policing quality is going to go down because they can't talk to people very well. And, maybe it'll get to the point one day where you get pulled over and they hand you a cell phone and y'all text back and forth. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I know as society progresses to more electronic interaction as opposed to actual interaction, things are not going to get better. They're going to get worse because you can say anything you want over the internet and there's no real recourse for it. Nobody's going to come to your house and punch you in the mouth because you called them an asshole on Facebook. But in reality, like in the America that we grew up in, yeah, you didn't just say whatever you wanted to when you were running around school, because somebody is liable to tune you up over that. And that's a valuable life lesson that you get when you're really young that you kind of carry over into adulthood. Yeah, I'm not going to just do whatever I want and say whatever I want to somebody, because there may be a paying penalty for that. And you know, officers come from the community, so as that generation, the electronic age and the video game era gets up into adulthood, that's the officers you're going to get. And that's the hardest thing when you train a new police officer is getting them to talk to people, because part of your investigations is just, you know, talking to people, and then you stick your question in there, right? You know, you're just having a conversation, and then I'm basically trying to get you to confess to a crime. So we're having a conversation, and I stick this question in there and see how you answer, how you react to it. You know, and then I back off that. We go over here a little bit, and then I stick another question in. And then, you know, and a lot of those guys, especially some of our investigators, are top notch. They're like that. They're what you'd call a bullshitter. You know, they're going to disguise their questions. They're going to mix their questions among those just conversations, you know, and before you know it, they've got a confession out of it. You know, they know exactly from your body language and whatever, and talking to people, exactly when to push and try to get that confession. And if it's not working, they back off and they go to something else. If it is working, they keep going. And before you know it, you know, they're solving crimes and getting confessions and learning what they need to solve crimes from people without those people really even knowing, because they can talk to folks.
Yeah, great point. We got 50 folks on. Thank you to the 50 that are joining Andrew and I live this morning. Please like and share. I got a couple more questions for Andrew. Like, as you can see, we're having a rather nuanced discussion about law enforcement policing. I got some other pretty incendiary questions coming for Andrew this morning. Not sure if he knows it or not. But the first one I would, one of the many that I would ask you, Andrew, is where is all this going? And I know that's a big, broad question. I'm giving you no left or right lateral limits, my friend. Where the heck is all this craziness going?
I don't know. I mean, I try to temper it a lot of times with, well, you know, the media is controlled by certain viewpoints, right? So are you getting the whole picture? When you're watching CNN, even watching Fox News, watching all these news outlets, all this media, are we getting the whole picture? Are we seeing this in reality? Or is it just the mind control of the media, you know, telling the same lie over and over and over and over again, right? Because like we talked about before, there's just under 1 million cops in America, right? So even if those 900 and some odd thousand officers shot 1,000 people a year, most of those, the overwhelming majority of those, are going to be justified, right? The ones that aren't, the officers will obviously probably be prosecuted, at minimum lose their job, at maximum spend time in prison. But those are an even small number. So out of that 1,000 people, there may be a handful, 4 or 5, right? So it's unacceptable that those 4 or 5 happen. Those officers will be, you know, charged or disciplined or punished. There will be a punishment for that. But when we think about those 4 or 5, or we even think about that 1,000, think about the millions upon millions of interactions that those law enforcement officers are having with people every single day. So when you look at something and you say, is this a problem? Right? Let's say, you know, what's a common cause of death?
Heart disease, cancer? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, you can pick one. Falling off a ladder, right? People die falling off a ladder.
Oh, yeah.
So let's say, okay, we're all in uproar because the media is saying that, you know, ladders are dangerous. You know, 5,000 people fall off ladders every year and die. And the number of fall off ladders is probably not near that high. It's probably a few hundred, right? So let's say 500 people. They fall off ladders every year. We got to do something about these ladders. This is a problem. Not really. When you think about there's like 300 million Americans and only a couple of hundred are falling off of ladders every year, then is this the problem we want to address? Or could we address, maybe the 600,000 that die of heart disease, or the 600,000 that die of cancer every year, or, a lot of these, car accidents that kill a lot of people, so it's like, it's the same as with the gun control debate. People talk about gun control. Guns kill. Cars kill far more people a year than guns, and they do every single year, and they have every single year, probably since, a few years deep in after Henry Ford invented his horseless carriage. So it's like, what's the problem? What we need to find the big problems and solve those, not take a small problem and try to blow it up into something that's huge, right? Because the basic thing, anytime I would ask your viewers, anytime a law enforcement officer shoots somebody, the first question you need to ask is, did the bad guy make decisions to make that happen to himself? Did he do that shit? Because if the answer to that is yes, then we have nothing left to talk about. Could situations be handled better? They could always be handled better. You can always find some tweak, some tune in anything you do to make it better. But nobody's asking the question of like the guy up there in Wisconsin that got shot. He told people on scene that he had a gun and he was going to shoot people. He had a knife in his hand and he was going around to his car. What the hell do you want those officers to do?
Jacob Blake is what you're talking about, right? Kenosha.
And then they complain that they shot him 7 times. Well, I don't know how many shots it takes. Most people, if you watch enough videos and you get enough evidence, most people, what do they do when you shoot them once or twice? The same thing they were doing before you shot them once or twice. So you can't ask an officer and say, it's not as simple as saying, okay, well, 4 shots would have done it. Why did you do 5? Why did you shoot him 5 times instead of 4? If I think 4 would have done it. Well, nobody cares what you think because you weren't on the scene. Did he do that shit? If the answer to that is yes, we have nothing left to talk about on Jacob Blake. Nothing. Because he had a knife. He was going to get a gun. Or at least he led them to believe he was going to get a gun. I'm not sure. I think they did find a gun in the car, but I'm not 100% on that, so I won't commit fully to it. But he was giving every indication that he was going to get a gun to shoot at people, and they didn't allow it to happen. He did that shit. We have nothing left to talk about. As long as the evidence supports that he did that, why are we rioting? Why are we burning down our cities? Why are we making a criminal a martyr? Rosa Parks was a civil rights hero. She did nothing wrong. She was simply tired of it, tired of the segregation, tired of the racism, and she stood up against it.
She stood up against it by sitting down, right? Not by burning the bus.
Yeah, she didn't go burn the city down. So that's someone who's a hero, not Jacob Blake, who had sexually assaulted and I believe raped a lady and had a warrant on file for it and was over, I believe, at her house causing a disturbance. He was a criminal. And when the officer showed up, I'm sure he had every opportunity to give up, to put his hands behind his back and go to jail for the warrant he had on file. He chose differently. He chose a much more violent path. And violent means have violent ends. He chose exactly what he got. The officer was nothing but the mechanism. He knew exactly what would happen. He had 4 officers standing around with guns out, telling him to, show us your hands or whatever, whatever verbal commands they were issuing, the common ones, show me your hands, get on the ground, get out of the car, put the knife down, all of that stuff they're telling him to do. What the hell did he think was going to happen? He knew exactly what was going to happen. He went in that car and he was going to push it as far as he could. Maybe he had a hope that 1% chance he could get a gun out and shoot all the cops and then do whatever he wanted. Maybe that's what he thought his outcome was going to be. But he knew exactly what those cops would do. It's not hard. It's not hard to understand that. You point a gun at a cop, he's going to shoot you or at least shoot at you at some point, right? We know this. Every American knows this. So it's like, okay, that's why suicide by cop became a thing. Why do you think suicide by cop even is a thing? Because people know if you do like point a gun at a police officer, he will more than likely shoot at you. So, okay, well, now that becomes a way that I can commit suicide because I know this response, right? I know if I do this, he'll do this. So people can't act like they don't know. You pull a knife or a gun on a police officer, he's probably going to pull his gun out and shoot at you or shoot you. It's a mechanism. It's not, we're not out here killing people just for the hell of it. They're making decisions.
Well, your point is the police officers have seen all the videos on YouTube of their fellow law enforcement officers getting shot when somebody reached into the car after, with the Jacob Blake, as I understand it, I may be completely wrong, but from a couple articles I've read, he took 2 taser strikes. They had no effect. There was a scuffle with law enforcement in which he had 1 law enforcement in a headlock. They had all this pre-incident knowledge about Jacob Blake, i.e. he was violating a restraining order. He was on the premises of the woman that he had already sexually assaulted. So they have all this knowledge going into this event. Then he's non-compliant, and he's going, is it reasonable to think Jacob Blake was going to get a bouquet of flowers for the officers out of his truck, or that he was going to get some other weapon that had, yet unseen? So the reasonableness and appropriateness of that level of force is going to be up to a jury to decide. But I would tell you, one of the ways that they used to train German officers, this is rather interesting. It's from this book, Battlefield Leadership by von Schnell. And he said that they would take young officers and they would have them march down a road, and they would present them with a scenario. And the further you got down the road toward the enemy, the more information you got to make a good decision. The problem was the further along you got, the more of a trap that you became in by the enemy. So I think that the same thing is true here. The farther I let this thing go with this suspect, the more information I know, but also the more at risk I am. So to this Jacob Blake issue, which we're talking about this morning, I'm getting more information as this evolved.
Yeah.
I've been called to the scene by the woman who was sexually assaulted. I'm getting this information from dispatch that there are active warrants for his arrest. He should not be at that location. There is an active restraining order against him. We show up, we try to de-escalate. It goes south. It leads to a fight. He puts my officer friend in a headlock. He's got a knife. We do two taser strikes. They don't work. He says he's going to kill somebody, goes to his car. I have to take him at his word at some point, right? I cannot let this person endanger himself or others. I mean, to me, it's like, I don't understand this.
Because it's illogical. It's irrational.
Well, it is.
It's like, okay, if I say I've got my car, I'm going to shoot, and you're a cop, right? You tell me, to get on the ground or whatever, and I don't. And I walk over to the door. You shoot me now? Or let's back up. Do you shoot me as soon as I say it? As I say, I've got a gun in my car and I'm going to get it and shoot you. You shoot me? No, we don't, right? So we go a little further down that road like you're talking, right? So I go to my door. I'm refusing all your verbal commands, right? Maybe even like Jacob Blake, you tried to tase me. Didn't work. You shoot me now? I'm just standing at my door. Probably not. All right. I open the door. I'm still refusing verbal commands. Taser hasn't worked. I open the door. Now we're starting to get into a little area, right? I told you exactly what I was going to do. So maybe not. I would probably personally wait. I reach in the car under the seat. You shoot me now? Maybe not. I pull the gun out. You shoot me now? Maybe not. I raise it up and point it at you. Maybe not. I press the trigger and shoot you in the face. You don't have the opportunity anymore. Yeah. So at some point, as you through that little thought experiment, that little illustration, you see at some point here in the middle, there's a malleable gray area of when you should and shouldn't act. Because it's almost like you say, well, you should probably act here. You should act here, and then here's too late. So you get into that. It's not hard and fast. It's not like, well, if I tell you I've got a gun and I'm going to go to my car and get it and shoot you. Okay, it's not like, all right, officers, when they open the door handle, you shoot them. If they do this, you do that. It's great. And so you don't know. If you look at the Dinkheller murder, right down in I believe it's Lawrence County.
Georgia, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's Lawrence County, Georgia. It was around Dublin. I'm originally from Georgia, so the Dinkheller murder. You see the guy get out. He's acting all crazy, and Kyle Dinkheller's giving him verbal commands. He refuses verbal commands. He does just what we illustrated. He opened the door. You see him pull the 30 carbine out. You see the butt of it, and it's flipped upside down. He loads it. He flips it back over. He racks around into the chamber. Then he kind of points it at Kyle Dinkheller, and he attacks him. So it's like you see that start to progress. And, every time I've seen that video, it's like at certain points I'm like, I keep hoping, and you can't change time, but I keep hoping. I'm like, shoot him. Shoot him right now. Because I also get to have the hindsight of knowing how this plays out. But, thinking about it's like, shoot him. He is getting a rifle out. He's going to load it and kill you. Shoot him now. And, every time you watch it, it never plays out how you wished it would have. So that's a perfect illustration is there's gray areas. There are points where you can make the decision and it's perfectly morally and legally fine. There's other points, where it's almost like if you want to live, you better make the decision now because you don't have much longer. And so officers have to be able to operate in that gray area. And that's where understanding the law, having the experience knows, because it's like, okay, if you're Seeklander level pistol skills, you can provide that suspect another moment, one more opportunity to give up. If you don't have those skills and you're kind of being overwhelmed with like, the old, oh shit, pucker factor, right? You may not need to give them that other opportunity. That extra opportunity may not be in your skill set. If you can draw a gun from your duty holster in a second, you can fit that skill into smaller windows of opportunity. Somebody like Seeklander, it's already got sights on you with his finger on the trigger, giving you verbal commands. He'll probably wait a little bit longer than somebody who's only, shot a pistol 1 week of their life, had 1 week's worth of training on that gun, because he knows exactly what he can do with that gun and exactly what's going to happen if and when he has to make that decision. That clear as mud? Yeah,
but let's remove Mike from that because he's somewhat of an aberration, right? Let's talk about you. I've been training with you for about, 3 or 4 years, maybe longer. And you're probably without a doubt the most skilled shooter in your police department, right? Because you train at it. You do your dry fire training. You're on the range live firing 1 to 2 times every single week without fail. You analyze what you do well. You compete. You're a very skilled grappler. You do jiu-jitsu constantly to hone your skill. But what percentage of law enforcement officers have that level of professionalism to do the things that they should be doing? It's not where it should be in my position. My point.
And that's why when you talk about defunding the police, that's why it's the dumbest idea you could ever think about, right? Because all those things cost money. If you want, high skill levels help you make better decisions. So if you want officers to shoot less people, they need to practice shooting more. Their skill set with their guns needs to be very high, which means you're going to have to pay for more ammunition, more training for them to be able to shoot at those levels, because a high skill level, it's basically like the old, analogy of your brain being like a computer, right? If I can put my shooting skills into my subconscious, it frees up my conscious mind to make better decisions, because I'm not overwhelmed with my conscious mind screaming, get your gun out, get your sights. It's like your conscious mind goes, hey, you need your gun. Your subconscious kicks in. It's like, gotcha. I've got it. Now I can start thinking, okay, I'm aligning sights in periphery, maybe even at the point of taking up slack in the trigger, but I'm still conscious mind's issuing verbal commands. And then if it comes time where you have to shoot, your subconscious takes over, all that starts happening. Right?
Yeah.
So it's the same with jiu-jitsu. An ass kicked is an ass not shot. So I think a lot of officers, when you see in these videos, that a lot of officers are, and they're legally allowed to, it's legally and morally fine. So don't think I'm armchair quarterbacking, all these police officers that have gotten into fights or whatever. But how many, think about it, like how many of these fights that turned into a lethal encounter due to the nature of the fight, would have went all the way to lethal if they fight, a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a lot less. We could at least say some less, right? So we would have less people shot if we had higher skill level in grappling. We can say that across the board. So it's like, well, now we need to fund the police more so that they can get more training so that we can develop those higher skill levels in shooting and grappling. Police officers wreck cars a lot. A lot of that has to do with the fact that, they're driving like a lot more than your average individual. But it's the same thing, right? Okay, if we're having accidents, higher skill levels lead to better decisions. So let's get more drivers training. Let's get them more, a higher skill level at driving, so that driving down the road on a daily basis isn't really taxing their skills. So it's all about money. And if you want better policing, like TC says, you have to pay for it. Well, if you defund the police, you will get worse policing. You do away with the police, that's fine. Do away with the police. The job of policing will be done by someone. Look at Chop or Chaz or whatever those yahoos out there in wild ass Seattle thought would work, right? Within 1 week, they had a warlord. Within 1 week, somebody stepped up to enforce a set of rules that they were making up as they went. So it's like, is that what you want? Or do you want this social contract of here's the Constitution, here's how police officers have to act, and if there's an issue, we go to court, we deal with it, maybe we amend the law, or we have case laws that guide how these go, where we're trying to kind of keep it between the ditches as we do this thing called America. Or you want to do away with the police, and maybe your city has a warlord that doesn't like anyone with blonde hair. And so they beat the piss out of them or kill them just because they don't like them, because that's a rule they decided they made up. So the job of policing will always be done by someone. It always has been in every culture since the beginning of humanity.
Yeah, TC had a great point when we talked about, there's a contract between the community and the police, and that is, the police get to have a monopoly on the legal use of force, right, in a community. But once that societal contract is fractured, in the case of communities where there's so much anarchy, there's so much looting, rioting, and chaos that the law enforcement pulls back, hands off, someone's going to step in to fill that void. And that's why you have situations like the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, right? You've got a young man who, armed with a med kit and an AR-15 and wants to do the right thing, ends up in a situation the way that he did because he's trying to fill a void created when law enforcement pulls out. So to your point, Andrew, that you made, I think, rather well, is that if we see defund the police, somebody's going to fill that void. Do we want it to be young people like Kyle Rittenhouse? I'm not saying anything bad about him. I think he's going to get off. I think it was a reasonable and justified use of force from what I've seen and read. But I mean, somebody has to fill that role. Societies have to have walls and people to protect those walls and protect those rules, right?
Look at it. Look at what's happening, and humanity hasn't changed. We have some fancy gadgets, and we have cars. We have technology. Human nature doesn't change, right? Look at the war in Iraq. What happened? We had Saddam Hussein. He's a bad guy. We're going to get rid of the bad guy. Cool. Let's do it. Boom. We get rid of Saddam Hussein. Okay. Now what do we do? Well, we're going to stay here for a while, try to get these people up on their feet, right? We're going to police them. We did that for a while, right? There were some skirmishes along the way. There was heavy fighting in, Ramadi and Fallujah and all of that, right? We had these policing incidents. That's what those are, these uses of force. Well, eventually, we just said, screw it. We're done with this place. We're leaving. The policing force, a.k.a. the United States military, started scaling back and pulling out. What happened? ISIS came in. That vacuum was filled by someone, and they started policing people. And their rules apparently were really fun, because they were just doing whatever they wanted to do, whatever rules they decided to enforce that day, right? So the policing was done by somebody. And so it's the same way. You transfer that human nature from a big scale war in Iraq to Seattle. There were some uses of force. There were some, skirmishes in Seattle. And then eventually the liberal mayors just said, just let them have 6 blocks. Okay. They burnt the precincts down. We're like, screw it. We're out of here. What happens? Whatever that jackass that was the war, calling himself, the head of it or whatever, the warlord that rose to power there in Chopper Chaz, probably because he was one of the few people with guns. He just started enforcing rules. You can see videos. They're just beating the hell out of people because for whatever reason, whatever rule they wanted to enforce that day. So that vacuum that these mayors are creating by backing the police out is going to be filled by somebody, or it's going to be filled by anarchy. The only reason it's not anarchy is because somebody through force or show of force takes control. So that's what happened in Kyle Rittenhouse's situation, right? The mayors had pulled back. Just let them have it. Let them throw their tantrum, and when they're done, then we'll come back in there. Kyle Rittenhouse got caught up in a big section of anarchy because the police were way back. And that's why those people lost their lives. That's why Kyle Rittenhouse got smashed in the head with a skateboard, and some dude was running up with a gun in his hand. That's why all that happened. All that happened is because mayors and governors and all these gutless politicians aren't doing what they should be doing. Now, I'm not saying jackbooted thugs come in there and, stamp people out, but you have to maintain the order. You have to show, because here's a term you keep seeing in the brainwashing capacity of the media: mostly peaceful. You ever seen The Princess Bride?
Yeah.
Is he dead? No,
Princess Bride.
He's mostly dead, right? Mostly dead. It's still partially alive. It's like mostly peaceful. It's still partially violent. So you have to deal with the partially violent part. In our city, we had protests that were probably 99.9% peaceful. There was, I think, once or twice where a few of them decided to try to get into the old partially violent. They were immediately met with, an opportunity to give up, which they chose not to take. They broke some things, and then they met with a device called a pepper ball gun. After that, we had no problems. Because I think, humans aren't terribly stupid, or at least I like to think so. So they see, like, okay, if we march and chant and do this, there's no bad outcome. The police don't really get involved. We yell at them and we say things, and maybe even a portion of the peaceful crowd is actually working with city officials and working with police officials to make things better. These are good things, the working with, not necessarily the yelling at part, but the peaceful part of it, right? There's a peaceful part going on, and there's no bad outcomes. But when this partially violent starts to show its head, if you don't do something about that, then that's when you get the anarchy. That's when you get the vacuum. That's when you can't just ignore it. You start to ignore it and pull back, then you get a Chopper Chaz situation. You're too big of a cow to do what you needed to do as a mayor or a chief or whatever.
Yeah, I agree, man. Thank you to the 45 folks that are still on with us this morning. Going a little long here with Andrew, and I figured it probably would. We've been on for about an hour and 45 minutes. Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you if you're watching the replay. I got a couple of comments here. Rick brings up a great point. He says, those 6 blocks weren't theirs to give. Well said, and we absolutely agree with you here this morning, man. That was somebody's personal property that was completely abdicated to the criminals by a gutless mayor in my position. Let's see what other...
when you talk about like the private property aspect, or even any of that, the mayors are acting outside of that social contract, right? When you talked about, okay, the police have a monopoly on the legal use of force, they're supposed to use it. The mayors, the governors, all these gutless politicians are supposed to use that. to protect people's property, and now they don't. So now these mayors have violated that social contract. So now what are the people who own private property supposed to do? You see how everything just starts getting muddy and falling apart when they don't abide by their half of the social contract.
Well, yeah. And what did we see in 1992 during the Rodney King riots? The Korean store owners, when the police officers pulled back and surrendered that territory, suddenly the Koreans decided, hey, man, I came to this country with nothing. I built this up. If you're going to pull out, I'm not going to let these people burn my store down. And we saw a great case in point for our cherished Second Amendment, man. Ruben,
like the store owners, right? And people say, well, you shouldn't be, using lethal force to protect property. Well, like the Korean store owners, I believe were immigrants. Mm-hmm. They really came over here with not a whole lot. That store and its contents was probably everything they had, and they were trying to use it to make a better life for themselves. If they lose that store, they lose that inventory, I would argue that they basically lose their means to support themselves, which means they kind of lose a portion of their life. Not the actual, lifeblood, breathing oxygen, heartbeat life, but they lose the life they had built here in America. So of course they're going to protect it. If you're going to violate that part of the social contract as a mayor, then of course people are just going to do what they feel like they need to do. And then we get back into people doing policing that have no training because they're on the roof of their store with a gun, just knowing that, well, if I shoot at people, they won't burn my store down. So I'm going to keep doing that.
Yeah, I don't think we want that. Ruben says protesters were a little shooty, but mostly peaceful. Yeah.
It's like partly today, mostly peaceful, but partially violent.
Yeah. Fairfield says the challenge is that even the Castle Doctrine laws are not consistent in all states. So if someone breaks into my front door here in New Mexico, I'm still not clear on shooting them unless I can demonstrate a clear threat to my life or that of my family. And we've had, of course, Andrew Branca from the Law of Self-Defense on here, America's leading self-defense attorney. And he's talked extensively about that, whether on our show. I think he was on your show as well, was he not?
No, we hadn't had him on GunJitsu yet.
Okay. But I guess the point is that Fairfield's making is, the laws are different in every single state, and you have to know the law. And I know Fairfield knows that. That's why he's bringing up a great point. And, I'm heading to Montana again here in another week, and I'm going to read up on Montana gun law. I'm going to read up on Montana self-defense law. I'm going to be carrying a gun in national parks. I want to read up on what laws govern those things because I don't want to run afoul of it.
Well, I mean, it's just good practice, right? If we use PC, the most interesting man alive's analogy of the social contract, right? When you go buy a car, that's a contract. Because when you get financing, when you go buy a house, that's a contract. Do you read it? I mean, you should. It's pretty common practice. Most people will tell you before you enter into a contract with anyone about anything, you should probably read it. Unfortunately, you don't have a chance to opt out of the Constitution here in America, but at minimum, you should read it.
Yeah.
So you know what the contract says, so you're not like, oh, I'm sorry, officer, I didn't know I couldn't run Rich Brown over with my car. I mean, it was crazy. I would have thought I should have been able to do that, but no, you just can't.
Yeah, and if for those of you watching this morning, watching live or watching the replay, I encourage you to go back and watch that interview we did with TC because he brings up several good points, and I think we've touched on a few of them today.
He's wearing a lovely blazer in that last one y'all did.
He's a handsome man. Let's get to the last question I have for you here, Andrew. There's a lot of talk of a second civil war. Do you think that's hyperbole, or is there any kernel of truth to that?
I think at this point it's mostly hyperbole. I don't foresee it. There would have to be a complete government breakdown before that happens. Does that mean it's possible? I think that that's where certain political parties, I don't want to group a whole party. I think that's where certain political figures would like for this to go, or maybe they would like for it to go to a place that it could only get there through a civil war, right? If you truly want to turn this nation into socialism and communism, there will have to be a civil war to get there. You know, if that's the path you're trying to take, there will be a civil war before you get there. Now, we still are a republic and we still get to vote. So if we go in and we vote all these people out that want that, then no, there'll be no civil war. Even if we go, you know, a little bit this way and a little bit that way and a little bit this way every 4 years, right? As long as we're between the ditches, we're fine. But if we get too much more extreme, then yeah, I think in order to make a capitalist nation a communist nation, you have to have a civil war. You have to have some sort of war. There has to be some sort of force to make that final push over into communism. But like I said, as long as we still have our voting power, you know, it's as long as the citizens still vote, I don't think you'll see that. You'll see it'll go this way, and then people will be like, man, I don't like that. So the next voting cycle, they vote it back a little more that way.
Okay, I'll throw some of my thoughts out there and we can banter back and forth. And if you have any questions or comments, please throw them in the comments section. Thank you to the folks that are still joining us live and those that watch the replay. I think that, and TC and I talked about this at length on the show that we did most recently, was domestic terrorism statutes. And at what point are we going to start applying domestic terrorism statutes to some of these groups or some of these specific individual agitators? And the case I use is, you know, when I was on a gang task force one time, we had a criteria, and I don't know how you guys do it, Andrew, but we had a criteria for getting on our list, and it was points criteria. So if you wore gang colors, that would give you 2 points. If you associated with known gang members, that might give you 3 points. If you had a gang tattoo, that might give you another 3 points. So there was this gradient scale that could get you on our list just by doing certain things. The only thing that got you to immediate 10 points was if you were declaring yourself as a gang member. And in that case, you don't have to wear the colors. You don't have to have the tattoo. You don't have to associate with anybody. Bang, you're on the list. Thanks for playing. I say that in the context of domestic terrorism. When you are burning down cities, you've been interviewed and you've said openly, death to America, you're burning our flag, you're doing some of these things, you renounce your citizenship, as some people did during the Chaz Chop days, that summer of love that they had up there. I think that they need to be treated as a domestic terrorist. I think the gloves need to be taken off. Now, why am I saying all this in context of a Civil War discussion, which is what we're talking about now? Because I think some of the seeds are there. Okay, we have the media. All right, they're fanning the flames. We have the leftist party, the leftist part of the Democratic Party have taken over the Democratic Party. When you have Kamala Harris saying that she's proud of Jacob Blake. I don't know what in the heck she's proud of, but she said that on an interview recently.
So I guess is the Me Too movement done?
I believe so. Evidently so.
Is she proud of him doing sexual assault, or is she proud of I'm unclear of what she's proud of.
I am too. Let me continue my role here, and I'll turn it over to you, Andrew. The point I'm trying to make is you have some conditions that are set that give us a glimpse into what we're going to have in 2021. And the point I'm trying to make is with COVID, you've created some conditions where different states are going to do different things with regard to voting. In some cases, those electoral votes, if they're lost or if they're ambiguous, whether the voting process was followed, whether the integrity of the voting process has been followed, can we really trust that the voting system? You could have parties that refuse to acknowledge the democratic process here in the coming election. So my point is to say there are a whole host of conditions that are right for some sort of conflict. I'll give you one final one, Andrew, that I see as being a problem. When you have the federal government that still says marijuana is illegal, the DEA is out there cracking down on it, even in states where the state has said, yeah, it's legal, we let you do it. You've already had states for a decade or more thumbing their nose at the federal government's power. Now you could have states that say, we don't recognize this election. We're going to go our own way. We're going to secede. We're going to do whatever. So the second Civil War, if there ever is one, I pray there's not, could be different. It could be something more akin to, say, like the Troubles of Northern Ireland, or something like that, where it's limited violence, small pockets of disrupt. I'll give you one final one, Andrew, then I'll throw it back to your thoughts. And that is, we still have all the trials to go. Kyle Rittenhouse trial is going to be dramatic. The trial for Officer Roth involving the shooting of Rashad Brooks in Atlanta is going to be traumatic. Derek Chauvin and all the other officers up there, it's going to be traumatic. The Kenosha, Wisconsin will burn yet again because we're going to see the trial of those officers. All those trials, all that litigation is still going to play out on 24-hour news cycle all throughout next year and the coming years. You don't think this is going to continue to lead to additional problems?
Yes and no. You never really know, because Americans have such short memories. So it's one of those things that the propaganda machine, the media, is just designed to keep everybody stirred up. So, are the trials going to be that big of a deal? I don't know, because they may view it as like, wow, this guy's he's gonna get off on this. I don't think we can get them that stirred up over that. We have this other thing that just happened that we can get them really stirred up over. So, it's kind of like when you print a retraction in the newspaper. You retract the mistake you made on the front page by, putting it on the back page, hoping that nobody makes it all the way to the back to see it. I don't know. I think there's a lot of the voting populace who doesn't buy into the horse shit. And so I think they're going to vote a lot of people out. I'm almost to the point where when I go vote, I may just go down the list, and anybody that's an incumbent, vote against them. Because if we really think about it, I think most people agree that we should probably have term limits in the Senate. You've got these people like Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell and all these people who have been in there for, Joe Biden was in there forever, and they haven't done a damn thing. But they won't vote themselves term limits. Of course not. There's all kinds of things wrong with that. But America, if they unify, can enforce term limits on their own. They can vote these people out. You're done when we say you're done. We don't care if you have term limits or not. We'll vote you right out of there. And then people come back with the argument of, well, you can't get anything done in Congress, and just 4 to 8 years, it just can't get anything done. Well, if we're voting your ass out every 8 years, you better get something done. So it's like 8 year, yeah, made me happy. We're done signing your paychecks. You're out of here. Vote for the new guy. Maybe he'll get something done. And you'll see that process start to shrink. You'll see all this bloated, convoluted process of government start to have to be streamlined, because it's like, well, dude, we got 4 years. They're going to vote us out of here. So that's like the basic principle of getting these people out. The political arm is just designed to stir us up. I recently ditched my Facebook. For those of you out there that follow this, that were friends with me on Facebook, I ditched it. I'm tired of seeing what they want me to see. I'd rather see none of it, or go find it on my own. Facebook news is not news. Facebook is programming your brain. All this social media is programming your brain. It's like, you want to talk to me? We'll do it in real life. Or something like this where we can interact. I'm not going to do it on Facebook where, I just read more and more articles of bad stuff, because there's not very much good stuff on Facebook. I mean, my little girl's birthday, I posted a picture of her, and that was kind of the last straw, right? I posted a picture of my little girl, and basically wished her a happy birthday or whatever. She's 3, she don't have Facebook, so just for my friends, see it was my little girl's birthday. That was the only positive article I saw that day. The only one. So I was like, why am I even doing this? Why am I even on Facebook? Why am I allowing myself to be programmed? So I was done with it. And if everybody did that, Facebook wouldn't be a thing anymore. You know, Americans need to unify and work for a common goal, not just be stirred up at each other. Because when we're stirred up at each other, we don't see how the politicians are screwing us. Because they're up there doing stuff, voting themselves raises and all this other shit, while we're down here fighting over stupid things.
Yeah.
We take our dollars and votes, right? We take dollars and votes and we make those work for us. They will work for us. You know, don't like a politician? Cool. Let's vote him out.
I like your analogy there with dollars and votes, and just to clear up the muddy water on that, the way I see it is, in a capitalist economy, every dollar you spend is a vote cast for or against that company. Well, yesterday I saw that Nike, their market shares plunged by, I think, down 46% in North American markets, and they've lost almost $1 billion so far this year. And again, I think that, you know, for me, when I see the way that they've supported the false narrative of Mr. Colin Kaepernick and the lies, I go, okay, well, not a problem. I will never purchase Nike again, because you have chosen your side to be anti-law enforcement, anti-science, and anti-facts, actually, because what the entire movement really flies in the face of the evidence. Real quick, and Andrew, I know we've been on over 2 hours now, and I know we want to respect your time. What I'm going to finish is, and I'll give you the final words here, and we'll close it out, is this. If I'm wrong, okay, the best predictor of the future is what's happened in the past. And in the past, we've seen these incidents happen, and then the courtroom drama, that the outcomes of the courtroom really leads to the violence. It's not necessarily the incident, it's the aftermath that becomes problematic. As we continue to move, there's so many variables in front of us. And the other thing I'm doing is listening to the fall of the Roman Empire, some really good readings and podcasts I'm doing on that, because there's some parallels there. But my point is, if I'm wrong and 2021 turns out to be sunshine and rainbows, then you will have prepared for nothing. But if I am right, because what I'm telling you is to prepare your body, prepare your mind, get in a jiu-jitsu class if you're not there already, get to the range. I know ammo's expensive, folks. Get your body and your health in order. Stock up on some food and stuff, because I'm telling you right now, I think 2021 is, 2020, what we're in right now, is a dress rehearsal for what's to come. I hope I'm wrong. I really honestly do. I pray I'm wrong for my family and for this nation and my friends, and et cetera. But if I'm wrong and the evidence that is in front of us turns out to be not as bleak as it could be, then okay, great. You got a little bit extra food. You're in better shape. Your immune system's a little bit more healthy. You've learned how to do a little ground fighting, and your shooting has improved. But I don't see a downside necessarily to that.
Yeah, I think the real worry is in your local government races. Your real problems are your mayors and your governors and your state senators and your state representatives. Those are the ones that are, think small circle, big circle, right? You got your small circle, your town, right? Vote for your city council people. Vote for your mayors, your county commissioners, your county mayors. Those are the people affecting you directly. And then you got your state people, right? Vote for your state senators. Vote for your governors. Use those votes, because the one good thing we have working against us is the federal government is so bloated and so borderline useless, because they've just clogged up everything with bureaucracy and just infighting and just crap. They can't hardly get anything done. I mean, the post office hasn't turned a profit in its existence, if I remember correctly. So it's like they can't really do. America is great at war. We do war well. That is what the federal government really does well, is war. If we wanted to just have all-out war on the planet, America would probably win, because we're really good at that. Other than that, the federal government's just not that good at anything. I mean, they're so polarized right now, and they all get up there like it's professional wrestling. Have their interviews with good old Mean Gene, brother, and they talk about, Trump's up there, he's slinging a little snarky comments at Pelosi, and she's slinging them back, and it's all a bunch of bullshit. They're so just locked up, and they can't hardly do anything, that the federal government's really kind of I really don't care. Like, I'll vote for Trump, but it's like, am I going to be all doom and gloom if Biden gets it? I'm going to be like, damn, we're kind of in a tight spot, but I'm not going to be like, oh my God, it's over. We're going straight to civil war because Biden got elected. You know, like the federal government is like a glacier. It just barely does much of anything, right? Other than passes some laws that people have to go enforce. But other than that, it's not going to be the end of the world. But on your local level, your mayors, your governors, your city council members, yeah, they're the ones that will affect you directly. That mayor change from one party to another may impact your daily life a lot. You know, you may be driving through town and have one of those mayors that allows, you know, protesters, either mostly peaceful or the partially violent, to block a road. And now you can't get from point A to point B because of your mayor allowing that. Not because Donald Trump or Joe Biden or whomever's sitting in the White House at that moment allowed it. They didn't allow it. They don't even know what's going on. But the mayor does. The city council does.
Yeah, we have some comments here I want to get to. Andrew Branca, the law of self-defense, is on, and he says, during the fall of the Roman Empire, they had exactly the same kind of organized mobs that we have today in regard to Antifa and Black Lives Matter, BLM, as an organization. So I think his point is well made. You know, if you look at, there was an appeasement of the Visigoths, there was an appeasement of the Huns, there was an appeasement of the Vandals, and ultimately they couldn't be satiated any longer. They weren't using force with them, and again, of course, they destroyed everything. Andrew also says, don't forget the real problem is your local prosecutor. So if you have an opportunity to vote, look at it, because, man, I tell you what, Andrew's got a great point. When you see district attorneys are running on a platform that, hey, look, man, if it's a theft under $850, you will not be prosecuted by my office. Can I get your vote? That's terrifying. We should never think about the second, third order effects of that left unchecked. And a couple other things here. Andrew says, well, I'm old enough to remember the AWB. That was the federal government, and it definitely immediately affected my ability to obtain ARs and standard capacity magazines.
Assault weapons ban.
Yeah.
The federal government does, you know, they will do certain things that are, you know, like the assault weapons ban and the gun control stuff. So we do have to watch out for that. But I guess my point is more like a simple president change is not going to send us from, you know, peace to chaos or chaos to peace. It's never going to move like that. It's not going to swing so much like a pendulum as it'll glacially progress. And I think that's been the downfall of the Democratic Party also. I think they've tried to push too hard, and that's when you get like a Trump as president. I mean, who in their right mind would run Hillary Clinton? You know, the biggest crime family that's ever existed in America is the Clintons. Nobody trusted her. She left them boys to die in Benghazi. You know, nobody trusted her to even have the audacity to think that she would be the president of the United States, that she would be a good candidate for your party is absolute. I mean, it just illustrates the lack of being in touch with the American public. No one trusted her. You could have literally put up anybody else, and they probably would have had a better shot. Anyone. And so that's when you get like a Trump type president. He comes out there and he says what America's feeling. And I voted for Trump. Do I think Trump's the greatest president ever lived? No, he's got his flaws like everybody else. But I think Trump got elected because he was saying what everyone else was feeling. And it's basically, you know, how community organizers get to be president.
I will tell you, you know, I studied American Civil War history for probably about a good, 10 years, read dozens and dozens of books. Intimately, I read some of my ancestors' papers on the subject of what it was like to live during that time. And I tell you, it's pretty grim. One of the things, because we're talking about contextually some things that may or may not lead to some sort of conflict like a second Civil War. Obviously, it won't be fought in the same manner that it was in 1861 to 1865. But the point I'm trying to make is, yesterday we're at the courthouse and we're doing I think we're getting some tags changed over on a vehicle or what have you. And as we left, there's a monument, and the monument has hundreds of names for the Confederates from Cumberland County, Tennessee, hundreds of names, almost the exact same amount for the Union soldiers that died during the Civil War. And I'm like, that's the level of division. I had a moment with my children that were with me. I said, look at this. These were people that believed in this strongly enough that they were neighbors, but they were so divided by the issues at the time that they were willing to take up arms, fight, and die against their fellow county citizens. So there are a lot of lessons, man. I think we have to learn them. We have to search those out to try to get a handle on where this thing is going if we don't pull back from the abyss. And to your point, maybe pulling back from the abyss at an individual level, Andrew, looks like what you've done, and just getting off of Facebook, man. Don't let the algorithm continue to divide us the way it has.
Yeah, man. Because, I mean, it's the same, at work, right? I can't tell you, you see all the stuff on Facebook and all the algorithms, telling you that everybody hates the police, F the police and this and that. And then, when I go to pull through a drive-through when I'm working or something, try to get some of the Lord's chicken from Chick-fil-A, and somebody buys it for you. You get up to the window and they're like, oh no, that person in front of you paid for it or something like that. I can't tell you how many times that's happened since all of this, right? So when you dabble in real life, you start seeing a perspective, right? Because the only times I see people saying F the police is usually at the protests, on certain calls, and that's about it, When I'm out here, going to the local convenience store to get a drink, or going to a drive-through or wherever to get something to eat, you're not seeing it. So it provides you that balance. If you're an officer and you work within your beat or your area, if your area contains a bunch of people like here, if you go to the local college campus, you're going to find, all these kids who aren't really old enough to know their ass from a hole in the ground, because all they've ever done is, school their whole life. They're going to be yelling at the police and all this stuff, So if you work in that environment, you think maybe that's what the rest of the city's like, but it's not. If you travel around, you go outside your area to get something to eat, you may see a whole different side. And so that's going to kind of balance your perspective, as opposed to just sitting in this echo chamber and hearing nothing but, little white college kids who, are rebels without causes. What's their cause of the week? Well, this week it's defund the police. So they're yelling that all the time when they don't actually do anything. They're making their little signs, chanting. They don't want to have a conversation with the mayor. They don't want to have a conversation with city council. They don't want to talk to the chief of police and work out issues. They're little rebels without causes. They've never done anything but school. So they want to stand on a street corner and yell. That doesn't get anything done. That draws attention to an issue, yes. But you have to progress past that. There has to be sit downs. There has to be talks. There has to be learning about each party or each side, and then coming to a common goal and trying to work things out. Standing on a street corner yelling with a sign, does it bring some attention? Yeah, but if that's all you do, eventually you're just background noise.
Yeah, great points. Andrew says getting off social media is excellent advice. Social media is a hate generation brainwashing machine. Yeah. Can't disagree with that, my friend. Okay, we've been on here for 2 hours and 15 minutes. Thank you so much to all those that have watched today and all those that will watch in the replay. It's been a really good discussion, and I thank you for everybody's time. Andrew, parting comments, sir.
I don't know, man. Just go live real life. This whole COVID thing, I don't know how that's going to go. I don't care. At this point, I'm 40. If I get COVID, I'll deal with it. If I don't get COVID, I won't deal with it. Right? I don't know. I don't see people stacking up, bodies counts and things like that. So get out there. If your town, your city, or whatever's doing the mask thing, the way I approach the mask thing is this: if Rich Brown owns a store and Rich Brown wants me to wear a mask inside of his store, I respect the Constitution. I respect his freedoms, his free right to operate a store. If I need something from him, I'll put a mask on and go in. If I don't want to wear a mask and I don't need something from Rich, I'll go find a store that doesn't make me wear a mask. I don't need to go in there and yell at Rich Brown and tell him he's stupid because he's telling people, to wear masks or whatever. It's just that simple, man. Went to Home Depot the other day. My personal beliefs on a mask don't mean nothing. Home Depot said I needed to wear a mask. I went in there. I needed a 2x4 and some little slats because Rich has been shooting all my target frames up. So I need a target frame. So I go in there, put my mask on and get them. Take my mask off when I come back out. I went home with 2x4s and stuff. Home Depot got a little money. We're both happy for them. I'm concerned. I would say get outdoors, have conversations with people. I would challenge you to have a tough conversation with somebody. Find somebody you disagree with that'll actually speak civilly to you. If they don't speak civilly, piss on them, don't talk to them right. But if you can find somebody that'll have a civil conversation with you, talk about something you disagree on. Learn how to talk to people. Learn how to be polite again, to at least a degree. And also, if you don't, shameless plug, you haven't listened to the GunJitsu podcast, go listen. Season 1, Cody bought a house, so we've been we haven't released an episode in a little while because he's been closing on a house and I'm renovating, so we've had things to do. But season 2 will be out shortly. Hear us talk about guns and jiu-jitsu. TC, the most learned man in America, has been on there before. So, Rich has been on there before. So we've had some really good guests, and hopefully we'll have some really good more guests as season 2 progresses.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I think your point about getting involved, get out there, get involved is interesting. There's I'm not sure if he's a congressman or senator, but he's put a bill forth about repealing the 17th Amendment. I want you guys to check that out because I think that could go a long way toward getting America back to where it needs to be. So if you're not familiar with the movement to repeal the 17th Amendment, please check that out. I'm not saying it's great. I haven't read the bill myself, but just the idea is a pretty damn good one. I'll let you investigate that on your own. Andrew, thank you for your time today. Thank you to the folks that joined us. And remember, stay safe because the fight is coming. You ready?